You going, Emery? Paula? No? You're not going? The MFE? The MF, okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you all for your patience and for waiting outside. We apologize for that inconvenience, but the next item on our agenda is to approve our January 21st, 2015 open session minutes.
Move approval of the January 21st, 2015 meeting minutes.
Second.
Any changes, discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item is our future meeting dates. We've posted for Monday, the 16th, with the Warrant Committee and Town Government Study Committee, again, to talk about the warrant articles and specifically the Town Administrator article, which we'll take up a bit later tonight. And our next dates are scheduled for the 24th and the 31st. Oh, I'm sorry. Very good. Sorry. Thank you. Our next meetings after the 16th are scheduled for the 24th and the 31st. There is a Warrant Committee meeting on Wednesday, the 18th. I don't know if we need to be there for any articles, but if so, we'll add a posting for that in case any of us decide to go to it. Payroll and vendor warrants.
Move approval of current payroll and vendor warrants.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Citizen Speak. Do we have anyone here tonight who would like to speak with the board at Citizen Speak? Yes, sir.
Tom Magman from Lyman Road here in Milton.
Good evening.
Excuse me?
Good evening.
Good evening to all, and I number one want to thank all you for allowing me to be here, and especially Paula. She's been so gracious in helping me, and I appreciate it. I just want to I'm not here to complain. I just want to compliment the DPW on the outstanding job they did in the last humongous snowstorm. And a lot of the DPW workers are personal friends of mine, an extended family of mine. And it was brought to my attention in a recent conversation with them just last Friday that how nasty, rude, and downright rotten some of the people have been to them. And not only getting the Bronx cheer flipped at them, but cursed at, stuff thrown at them, just being rude and obnoxious, and that's so uncalled for. Those guys work very hard, very diligently, and they don't make humongous amounts of money every year, and they are out morning, noon, and night, and people don't appreciate it. And I'd just like to strongly suggest to any of the residents that partook in such behavior, it's shame on them, because those guys really, really put their out-and-out effort. There's not a decent, more kind group of men and women than the Public Works people. I know Ben Casey, the dispatcher, is a very dear friend of mine. I was in the dispatch center at the DPW yard a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't believe the work he does in that dispatch center, monitoring calls on the computer, radios, telephones, and several of the other guys. And people don't realize, like Kevin and Charlie, they could be out plowing and be up in bucket trucks tomorrow changing street lights. And it goes unappreciated by a lot of the residents. And I'd strongly ask the residents, next time you encounter DPW employees, to go out, speak to them, and acknowledge them and say thank you. Even offer them a cup of coffee or a cold drink. And just by extending the little olive branch, that creates a lot of goodwill. And when someone's appreciated, it makes you feel good, makes them feel good. I just couldn't believe what some of them have been through, and it's totally uncalled for. Those guys are real professionals. They've been very kind to me over the year, and Paula and Anne Marie both know I'm a very big fan of the DPW, and there's no bigger thrill for me when I call him the gentle giant. Pat Feeney will come up Reedsdale Road when I'm out doing my 3-mile walk, say, "Hi, Tom, how you doing?" They're very respectful, and they're a wonderful group of people, and I thank them one and all. I want to thank you guys for allowing me to be here tonight. It's a pleasure. It's the first time I've met Mr. Cohane and Mr. Hurley and Ms. Conlon, and it's just been a pleasure to be with you, and it's a pleasure to have the DPW workers as friends and extended family, and I just thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for those
very much,
kind
sir.
words.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Thank you, Ms. Paula. Good night, everyone.
Would anyone else like to address the board at Citizen Speak tonight? Cindy Christensen.
Cindy?
Hi,
Hi, Sandy.
Good evening, Cindy.
I'm Dr. Cindy Christensen. I live at 59 Collimore Street, and I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 7. I think all three of you were at last night's warrant committee meeting, and so you likely heard Mr. Sheffield say that the East Milton Neighborhood Association is a group that doesn't want to listen with respect to the Plates liquor license article. I want you to know that's not true. East Milton Neighborhood Association offered to add this topic to our third meeting agenda later this spring, and also suggested that he could organize his own meeting for citizen input like Attorney McKettrick did for the Falcone property. I helped get the word out for that meeting, and I would do the same for Mr. Sheffield. He decided not to engage the residents in that way, instead contacting Attorney Dunn and me earlier this week with his request to meet with us this week. We could not accommodate his schedule. As a town meeting member, I want to report that many of my constituents have contacted me after learning about the expansion to serve liquor at this location. Some are upset because they learned about this expansion only in the last few months. All who have spoken to me have said that they do not want another restaurant with a liquor license in East Milton. Speaking for myself, I'm disappointed to learn that a liquor license request for the Plate at the Marketplace restaurant location was being discussed 10 months ago when the town meeting voted on the article for a license at the new Falcone restaurant. I only learned about it in February. As a town meeting member, I'm working to try to move forward with improved and timely communication, transparency, honesty, and respect for the residents of Precinct 7 and for the attempts I've personally made to represent residents while also promoting a friendly resident and business environment. Attorney Dunn is out of town on business, so cannot be here to speak tonight, but I think you all heard his concerns expressed at the meeting last night. As you discuss this warrant article, I encourage you to ask these 4 questions, which are questions that I've also been asked by my constituents. Number 1, what's the rush? Even with a 1.5 process to obtain the license, why does a restaurant that plans to serve breakfast, lunch, and brunch need to start the liquor license process now? Question 2, what is the saturation point for liquor license in East Milton Square? Question 3, the Marketplace is zoned residential. What are the consequences of permitting a liquor license to a business operating in a residential zone? Question 4, and this is the one that's most important to me. What is the marginal increase in revenue that this liquor license is expected to provide? I think we need numbers to properly assess that and make good decisions. I think most residents in East Milton are business friendly. However, we expect honesty, transparency, open communication, and the right to express concerns without being categorized as being emotional or overly reactive. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks, Cindy.
Do we have anyone else tonight who would like to speak to the board at Citizen Speak? Seeing none, then we'll go on to the next item on our agenda, which is the warrant article discussion for the Plate liquor license. Do we have Suzanne Lombardi? I can't see everyone in the room here. Is Suzanne or Bob Sheffield? Okay. 7:30? Okay, so we're a little ahead of schedule. So we'll go on then to number 7, which is the Uland Rink Annual Management Contract Report. And we have representatives of Curry College here tonight.
Hey, Rich.
How you doing?
Bob.
Hey, Rich.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Would you all please just state your names and titles for Curry for the record?
Sure. Rich Sullivan, Chief Financial Officer. Robert O'Connell, Director of Buildings and Grounds.
Kevin Burchill, General Manager of the rink.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us join you tonight. We're pleased to be here and pleased to have served the town for another year as manager of the Uland Rink. I forwarded on an annual report to the board about a week ago. What I suggest is I can run through quickly with the highlights and then open it up for discussions, questions that you may have. This is the 5th year operating as rink manager under contract with the town. It's been a partnership that has gone on for, as I say, 4.5 years with the scheduled expiration date of the town's permit with the DCR and the contract with the college ending April 30. There's been much uncertainty regarding the future of the rink beyond April 30th, yet the town and the college working in partnership have achieved a number of important goals for the town. Over this 5-year period, we've been able to insulate the town and its citizens from any financial exposure from the rink. The college has invested over $500,000 in the form of operating losses and capital improvements in the rink. We've extended the operating season by approximately 25% from what the DCR operated. The public skating hours have been increased by over 40%. We've focused on customer satisfaction with the capital improvements in the rink, while we've also been trying to focus on user satisfaction in the daily operation of the rink, while at the same time trying to bring in additional users to the rink. And as a result of all of this, we've been able to substantially reduce the operating deficit that was reported at over $300,000 a year when the DCR was operating the Ullin rink. But still, challenges remain in getting the rink to what we would consider a sustainable enterprise. The principal issues that we see going forward are, one, securing a long-term arrangement for appropriate investment in the rink. The town has been working diligently over the last 4.5 years to try to make that happen, and we understand currently the town is pursuing an interim arrangement while a long-term agreement is worked on. Additionally, making reasonable adjustments to ice time rental rates. The last time the rates were increased was the 09-10 season, so the DCR did approve rate increases, or the state approved rate increases this past January. We support the town's decision to defer those increases until next year. And thirdly, the DCR has invested significantly in a number of outsourced rinks. We've provided a list to the town so the town may pursue, trying to get some of those similar improvements in the Ullin rink to relieve some of the burden of capital expenditures going forward. The capital expenditures to date have been over $200,000. They're enumerated in the report, and against those we've received $54,000 in energy rebates. The time allotment for the and allocations for the rink are, as I mentioned, about 25% more hours of use now than when the DCR opened the rink. The primary users of peak hours, and it's interesting that the DCR in the new rate structure has started to distinguish between peak hours of use and off-peak hours of use. And the primary users of the peak hours continue to be Milton Youth Hockey, the South Shore Conference Youth Hockey League, as the two primary users of peak time, and the primary user of off-peak time is Curry College, with approximately 3/4 of our hours used being off-peak. As I mentioned, public skating has increased significantly, and this year we have over 260 hours of scheduled time, much of that time on days when the rink is, or the schools are closed and the rink is available to the youth of the town. And that 261 hours is actually after we've had to reduce some of the hours for rink closures. We were closed for a week for removal of the snow from the roof, and we've been able to get schedule some additional public skating hours to make up for that time. So those are the highlights of the report, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions I can regarding the operation of the rink or anything that you think may be of interest.
I just have, so are you saying the DCR we're losing $300,000 a year?
Yeah. The report was that they were losing over $300,000 a year when they were operating the rink, which was one of the motivations of outsourcing the rinks to others to manage.
And what is the loss that you're taking right now?
It's on Exhibit 2 of the report. In the fiscal year or the season, I can talk in seasons. In the season ending in spring of 14, cash loss was $38,000. Our forecast for the end of this season, this year, is a cash loss of $151,000.
How come such a rise?
Well, $66,000 is due to snow removal costs of the roof.
Yeah, that was a question I had. So we had to pay for the removal of the snow from the roof?
Right. What
Who's we?
happened,
Curry did, I mean, the town was responsible for it, which
Right.
passes off to Curry.
right.
Right.
Yeah, and what happened there, the arrangement that the town has under their permit with the DCR is, the DCR is responsible for the roof. We had put in a call to the DCR as part of that responsibility to address the snow on the roof, but we couldn't wait to see what would happen. I believe their response was taking it under advisement, but
Will you get reimbursed?
Judging from what happened in Canton, it's a damn good thing we didn't.
Right. And actually, the DCR at one point sent inspectors around to the rinks, and we were at the rink already with snow removal well underway when they arrived. So we were able to benefit from their structural engineer arriving at the rink, but we couldn't wait. We needed to act, with safety in mind.
Sure.
It's like utilities are another part of it, at least electricity is part of the reason for the increase
Right.
in the increase in the loss.
Right, somewhat. And one of the exposures we have there is our contract for electrical commodities expired at the end of November this past year. And so without having a long-term arrangement and being able to contract out, we're exposed for fluctuations
So
in
you're just
utility
paying
costs. The going rate.
Going rate, yeah, okay.
Month to month right now.
Yeah, okay.
Is the is that heat loss or is it?
That's the generators to keep the ice cold.
Yeah.
Uh,
Has the insulation? I noticed you spent 103,000 on insulation.
Right.
Has that helped?
I believe so. If you look at those benefits came in the second year of our operation because the first year, the season was already starting, so we couldn't make those improvements. So you'll see that the energy costs in fiscal year 11 to fiscal year 13 actually went down, and the operating season extended by 25%, including the warmer periods at either end of the season. So
As a result of the...
right. So what we had was additional energy efficiency from the insulation that was offset by extending the year by 25% into the warmer months.
So month-to-month kilowatt hour usage is down. But because the cost of electricity is up, particularly due to the gas demand in the area and the extended season, the cost of operation is up.
And, while we're on utilities, so I noticed the water and sewer kind of bounces up and down. Why is that?
I'm not sure what I can look into what happened in this past year. It was up about $10,000 from the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 15 is projected at a small,
It's back to normal, if you will.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it looks like 14 spiked
Right.
for some reason or other.
Some of that can be due to when they actually take the meter readings and also how much water is being used on different activity. So for instance, we see it up at the college. There are certain times when you have high load in one building for shower usage and no load in another area. So different groups using different amounts make a difference.
And our projected revenue is down for 15 because it doesn't include the playoffs, is that?
That's right.
And 14 did.
Right.
So
14
so that revenue may go up depending upon what happens in the playoffs.
And what we had, because we didn't know what it would be, we forecast for conservatism a full 12 months of activity for fiscal 15, and we didn't cut it off in the end of April, so there's a few extra months because the fiscal year ends August 31st for this operation. So we, for conservatism, included a full 12 months. So
Okay.
a comparison and planning purposes.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the amount of hours, the schedule free skating?
Sure.
Because that seems to be the big feedback we're getting. Has it changed from when DCR managed the rink?
Yes, in a couple of important ways. One, the number of hours increased. I believe the number of hours under the DCR was 170. There's 175
175
in that neighborhood. So they've increased to a minimum of 245 hours a year. The way we came up with that was working with the DCR at the beginning of the town's permit to understand the application of their 16 hours a week of public skating benchmark, but that benchmark is for the period just after Thanksgiving to the middle of March, and they said, you need to average 16 hours a week during that period, but you can satisfy that by starting public skating earlier and running public skating longer. So you do the math, you need to come up with 245 hours, but you can spread that over the entire season. So that's the approach we took. So we increased the hours, and so we immediately looked at the days that the schools were closed at the other times of the season, increased the hours there, and tried to manage that. During the second year of the season, another important change happened when we had the opportunity to bring Commonwealth figure skating in as an additional significant user. So we worked with the user groups and with the town manager, town administrator at the time, to determine how we could adjust times to squeeze them into the schedule. And part of that time was adjusting public skating hours. So at that time, public skating hours became, while still satisfying the 245 hours, became 1 hour on Friday evenings rather than 2 hours. And then the weekend schedules were, had different times on different days. They weren't always the same time on the same day. So those are the changes since the DCR.
So you increased the hours, but you kind of changed the time slots.
Yes, somewhat.
Yeah.
Although, looking at your analysis here, you're about 70% prime time public skate, 30% approximately
Right,
non.
right, yep.
Which,
Right. So if you compared it to some of the other neighborhood DCR rinks, you'd see that, we have much more prime time ice available.
yeah, that was the point. Now, and prime time goes from what hours to what hours?
Well, the DCR, interestingly enough, defined it in their rate increase notice. And if you look on Schedule 1B, we use their definition to calculate this. And it's Monday through Fridays from 3 p.m. until closing, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays from 7 a.m. until closing,
So those are basically times when kids are out of school.
basically.
So basically, what we're saying here is 70% of the public skate time was when kids were
Right.
not in school.
Right, the only non-prime time we have are Wednesdays at noon time for
11:30 to 2:30. And it actually is, it's the same 15 to 20 people that show up, some senior citizens, some small families, so it is utilized.
And that's included in the 16 hours a week.
Yes.
And I guess the second question I have,
It's
only
included
because
in the weighted 16 hours a week.
The weighted, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
the second question I have, and again, because it's been in the papers recently, and is that Milton Youth Hockey was forced to go to South Boston. I guess it was South Boston for ice time. Can you explain how that whole scheduling thing works?
Sure.
and-
I don't know that they were forced to go to South Boston, but that would be a question for them, how that occurred. But I can talk about how scheduling occurs. One of the things we try to do is keep the same schedule from year to year as much as possible. So we do a tentative schedule, getting input from all of the users regarding what changes they would need to make. The high school and college games tend to be about the same number, but they vary in terms of, which days of a particular week they are. So we schedule those. We schedule all of the recurring time when people typically have their time. And the general manager, Kevin, works with each one of them to see what the requests are and works out a draft schedule. Then we provide those to each of the users and invite them to a meeting of all the users to talk through and say, okay, are there things we want to mutually change in this?
So the starting point then is basically what they had last year.
Correct.
And then it moves from
Right,
there.
and it tends to be a mutually agreeable process. You say, okay, you have these, what do you need? I know Milton Youth Hockey this past year had more teams than they had historically, so they needed more hours. And then
we've actually,
work with the scheduler.
yeah, get back to the point of South Boston. You know, I communicate constantly with Mark Cornforth, and he had mentioned to me that 2 Sunday morning hours, 7 to 8. So I actually reached out to South Shore Conference in December and said, is there any way we can actually take back a couple hours so that Milton doesn't have to travel? And we worked it out and everything. Milton Youth's they've been out of South Boston and giving them back 2 extra hours a week.
Okay, good.
So it
Good.
worked out
By
pretty
the
good.
way, I understand the South Boston rink closed due to their roof issues with the snow load.
Yeah, it's
correct?
condemned for the rest of the year.
It's
it
closed,
really?
yeah, it's closed. They had
Yeah.
roof slide onto the locker room area.
Which is the same design that the Ullin Rink has, which is a sloped roof coming down on top of a flat roof. And that's the most sensitive area, and that was the area we clear first each snowstorm.
Okay, good.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, not to belabor any points, but basically, and everybody knows that, well, first of all, I guess we can say that we did get formal notice from, and I guess I'll steal your thunder a little bit. We did get formal notice from DCR that they've extended us the 1-year extension of the operating permit for the 2016 season, which, assuming that all the pieces fit together, we'll probably vote to do. That also includes a rate increase, and I think we talked about it at our last meeting that there's like approximately $25 rate increase, and that's only for prime time hours.
Peak hours, right.
And public skate. Have you done any analysis on what that might be for additional revenue?
Yes, that's about $40,000, assuming users don't cut back their hours in response, assuming they stay with the same number of hours.
Including public skate, or
Oh,
you
no,
didn't factor in public skate at this point?
Public skating, I wasn't sure how the town wished to approach that, and I don't know what the impact of going from not charging for public skating to charging for public skating would have.
But if
on
we did,
usage.
it would clearly bring in something more than the 40,000.
Yeah, in all likelihood, it would. There'd be costs now of collecting, you'd have to hire more people to administer the program, but, I would think it would be a net positive effect on trying to reduce the deficit.
And Tom, what was the requested or permitted rate increase for public skating?
Up to $5.
To $5.
Which again, for some people, that can be, a lot of money. For a lot of people, it's not, but, so an increase, assume we can keep costs relatively stable for 2016, maybe a $50,000 or $60,000 increase will go a long way.
What I calculated for tentatively for the next 12 months following this year would be about a $70,000 negative cash.
Without the increase?
With the increase, with the increase factored in, about $70,000. That includes some capital expenditures that would likely be necessary. So.
Okay. What types of capital expenditures are we talking about?
Well, the Zamboni is ripe for, we're experiencing trouble with the existing one. We have a loaner from the DCR currently.
Okay.
And when we started 5 years ago, the Zamboni was near the end of its life,
Yes.
and we've been keeping it going.
Spit bubble gum.
Yeah, pretty much. And right now it's experiencing a problem which would likely require some significant capital expenditure work on it, which would then extend its life as well. That's being one item. Another item going forward, that the area immediately outside of the Zamboni room really needs to be repaved, to be leveled, because right now it puts a lot of stress on the machine going in and out. And that's probably a $7,000 to $10,000 item, as I recall. So those two things immediately come to mind as some things that should take place over the next 12 months.
Okay. Is that an area that, is that a large area to repave? I mean, is that something DPW can do, or?
I don't know the DPW's, scope of work, but I would expect it's something they can do.
Is that something, Tom, you could follow up on? You're really our point person on the Ullin rink.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
between you and Anne Marie and maybe Bill, check into that.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, is there anything else for the Curry
good.
representatives tonight? Or anything else you wanted to share with us?
No, just in terms of the future of Curry's relationship, that's something that the town wishes to discuss. Would be more than and pleased to meet with the town. It'd likely be a complex discussion, a lot of facets to operating the rink, but we'd try to do so in a manner that would accomplish and accommodate the town's wishes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
We will now return to number 6 on our agenda, which is a discussion of a warrant article regarding the plate home rule petition for a liquor license. I think I saw Mr. Sheffield and
There he is.
Suzanne. Good evening, Bob.
Bob?
Good evening.
Good evening, Suzanne. This is a back-to-back performances for both of you. You were at the warrant committee last night, and we were there at the warrant committee meeting, so.
I brought treats because I know you guys sugar them up. I don't know. That's what I do.
This isn't a bribe, is it?
So
Goodness.
that'll keep you going too.
Thank
We
you.
can get some more cheers.
Right, and see?
Look. No calories and look.
I know there are people waiting outside. Fortunately, we don't have enough chairs for everyone, but if you'd like to come in and stand along the sides of the room, please feel free. Maybe we should have scheduled this meeting for another location tonight. Thank you, Anne Marie. Okay, well, while we try to get some extra chairs to accommodate the crowd, Bob and Suzanne, thank you for being here tonight. And we're here to talk about, maybe we should just give a little bit of background, because there's been a little bit of confusion about what is actually involved with this warrant article. And some people have asked us if this is if we're issuing a liquor license tonight, and that's not the case. This is the very beginning of the process where you're asking for a home rule petition and for town meeting to approve that so that the request would go to the state legislature, which would then, if they act on it favorably, would authorize the selectmen to issue a liquor license. And we did vote earlier in the year, I think it was in January, to submit the warrant article itself. It's not a 10-citizen article. This is an article that's submitted by the Board of Selectmen at your request. So would you like to take it from there and give us a little bit of background?
I would be happy to. First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Attorney Bob Sheffield from Milton, with offices at 553 Adams Street in East Milton Square. I have with me Susan Lombardi, who is a resident of East Milton and also is the owner of the Plate located on Central Avenue in that section of the town. Suzanne has had the opportunity to become the new restaurateur at the marketplace. To give a little bit of history, the marketplace has had a restaurant for approximately almost 25 years now, and it's located on the second floor of the marketplace building down there. The restaurant has always had closing hours at 9 p.m., and that has been legislated by the Board of Appeals. That is not going to change. The restaurant is going to be open for breakfast, it's going to be open for lunch, and hopefully it will be open for dinner. But they want to focus on the breakfast and lunch first, and then we'll be going on to a dinner menu. In the restaurant business, excuse me, the restaurant business is a little unique insofar as everybody comes until they have one bad meal. After they've had one bad meal, they don't come back, so you can't afford to put out a bad meal. What we are doing is we are requesting that over the long term, the selectmen have the opportunity, if it sees fit at that time, to grant a liquor license upon the application of the marketplace. The process begins with the town meeting, and the town meeting is being asked to submit a request to the legislature to approve the granting of a site-specific liquor license. Thank you, Anthony. At that location. By site-specific, I mean that the liquor license can be used for no other location in the town of Milton. It would also be given to the management that applies for it. So if the management were transferred, if the management were changed, they would have to begin the process again and go back to the selectmen.
Would not go back to the legislator.
They would not have to go back to the legislature, but it would have to go back to the selectmen and start at ground zero there. The idea of that is to make sure that the selectmen at all times have control over the situation. We put the article in for consideration. The Warren Committee met last night and improved it by a vote of, I believe it was 12-1, that they will recommend that the town meeting vote yes. Does that mean there'll be a liquor license? No, it does not. Okay. It means it will go to town meeting, and town meeting will take a vote. If they vote yes, will there be a liquor license? No. It will then have to go to the House of Representatives and the Senate and signed by the governor. Then there will be the possibility of the grant of a liquor license, and it will be in your hands. Will you have the power to increase the closing hours till midnight or whatever? No, you won't. That is controlled by the Board of Appeals, and they very tightly hold the responsibility on that. I would imagine that when the liquor license comes up, there'll be advertisements in the newspaper. The fact of an application will be made known, and you'll be inviting the community to give input on a yes or no, or support, or fight against it. A few years ago, something came up for an Acapulco's at the wharf. I should say that I represented the developer at the wharf, and I also represented the wharf restaurant. I did not choose to represent Acapulco's. I didn't think it was a good fit, and the community was very vocal in saying that it was not a good fit, and it never came to be, primarily because that the neighbors did not feel comfortable having an Acapulco's there. So this is just the first process. By June, we hope to have a restaurant opened. By June, the community can see the impact, can see the menu, can see the chef in operation. We can make judgments, and only after those judgments are made, there's a possibility down the line that the liquor license will be requested, and that a liquor license will be found to be good for the town of Milton and the East Milton community. We hope to have dialogue with the community. We hope to make the fact that we're having a new restaurant coming to Milton a headline in the news. We want to have discussion. We want everyone to know what our plan is, why we're planning it, and what time frame we're talking about. But it will be at least a year or a year and a half before a liquor license would be in the hands of the selectmen, that they could even consider it. Now I'd like to introduce the chef, manager, cook, bottle washer, and owner of the Plate at Milton Marketplace, and she can give you her ideas on the menu and her vision on what will happen. Suzanne.
Thanks, Bob. So I am a resident of Milton. I grew up in Milton and have lived here in East Milton with my daughter and husband for the last 20 years. Not my daughter for 20 years, but I have 30 years in the food industry. I've built out 6 professional kitchens, launched 2 successful wholesale companies, building them from the ground up and selling them both for profit. Community involvement's important to me. When we opened the Plate on Central Avenue 3 years ago, I was really stubborn, looking for space and wanted to open my restaurant in Milton. It was important for me to work in the town that I live in, and I really felt like there was a big void in the town for the kind of food that the Plate offers. The Plate, for those of you who have never been in there, is a small neighborhood food shop. It offers delicious handcrafted sandwiches, soups, homemade baked goods. We're open at that location Tuesday through Saturday, 8 to 4 p.m., and on Sundays from 8 to 3. Our first 3 years, we've received enormous amounts of accolades in press. We have outstanding, loyal customers who are really excited about the food that we make fresh every day, and we hear that they want more of it. Our customers are well-educated food lovers, neighbors who like simple, honest, high-integrity foods, handcrafted with love right here in Milton. So I guess to answer the question a little bit of what to expect at the Plate at Milton Marketplace, we have a look and feel for you, a footprint where, as Bob had said, the restaurant at the Marketplace had been operating for about 20 years, and we are, along with the team over at the Marketplace, jumping into a whole renovation of that space upstairs, and a well-needed renovation. So we're adding lots of natural light. We're opening up the kitchen. It was our idea and concept to really shift it from the more traditional restaurant that it had been operating as, and to really use the space in a way that would give customers a way to eat there or take out. So we're adding a full-service espresso bar. We'll be doing some smoothies, some juicing. We will have some of the prepared foods that we have at our current location to take out. And we're just really excited to be able to offer a bigger extension of what we're doing in our 800 square foot space on Central Avenue up at the Marketplace. We work with local farms. We believe in really showcasing local producers. We'll be working with a local company that's smoking its own bacon. We make all of our food from scratch. So unlike the other restaurants in town, I think what distinguishes us is that we make our own mayonnaise by hand. Maybe not the most financially viable way of operation, but certainly one that is important to myself and my staff who work at the Plate. So the idea of a liquor license for us is really not about a bar room. There's no bar that's going to be built into our space. The idea is to really offer a few carefully selected, handcrafted beers and organic wines to really enhance customers' experience with our handcrafted food. Seating in the Milton Marketplace will be approximately 42 to 47 when the build-out is all said and done. We hope to be able to use the space in some exciting ways before we open up for dinner, and that's to really offer some cooking classes. We're tossing around some fun ideas about doing cookbook clubs, taking advantage of some of the exciting cookbooks that are out, inviting the community to come in, cook from those, sit down, eat, hopefully enjoy wine while we do that. And so to really transform the space and use it in a way that will bring the community in, other than just a sit-down sort of restaurant. What else? Yeah, I mean, I think that we really differentiate ourselves from other restaurants in the neighborhood. The Plate at Central Ave was the first chef-owned restaurant in Milton. I think that makes a huge difference. Steel and Rye also is chef-owned. And I'm on site all the time. I mean, our customers come in, we have an open kitchen there, and we engage in all kinds of conversation: food, community, what's seasonal, what Brookwood Farm dropped off that day. We're not a restaurant that's really going to be the place where you come after work and have cocktails. The liquor license is really about celebrating craft beer, craft wine, and really pairing it with the kind of food that we're known for and that we're gonna be serving at the Plate. The hours of operation there, like Bob said, I mean, I'm somebody who has a lot of experience in this industry. I want to do things right. You get one chance to open the doors. I should say, this time around, to open a restaurant in Milton with the kind of anticipation and excitement we have from our customers is awesome. I mean, we are now a known brand in town where we weren't 3 years ago, and people really, I think, are anticipating something great. So my hope is that we blow the doors off that. So we're opening for breakfast and lunch. We'll be there 7 days a week. We're going to open at 6:30 in the morning to capture the commuter traffic. Also, we'll be able to offer all of the women at Fitness Unlimited a place to hop over and get a juice and socialize after their workout in the morning. So the idea was to be really thoughtful about that location, about the neighborhood, about how we could really use that space in a way that it hadn't been used in the past. Sunday, so 6:30 to 5:30 p.m. to start. Sunday brunch will be 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. With the idea of expanding hours to include dinner once we feel like we have our sea legs under us and we're ready to do that.
And this is until you get a liquor license. After that, you'll extend the hours, right?
Correct.
Questions or comments? All of us were at the warrant committee last night, so we heard a lot of discussion
Right,
last
I
night
don't
about it.
wanna
And
be
some of the
too
people who are
redundant.
here may have been at the warrant committee last night also to hear some of the, that was a pretty lengthy discussion and a lot of questions that the warrant committee had. Do we have other comments or questions we wanted to ask?
I've got a few, yeah. First of all, I guess a comment that when we issue a liquor license, we have a lot of discretion. We can put virtually any condition we want into a liquor license. We can't change your hours of operations, but we could change the hours that you can serve alcohol. We have that authority. We have the authority to do virtually anything we want in terms of restricting the use of it. So based upon feedback that we would get at a public hearing. So I just want to make that clear that it's not, you know, if we put a condition that there be no, that it be a service bar only, then that's all it can be without coming back to this board and asking for a change in it.
That's understood. I mentioned the hours because of the fact I had heard somebody throw out that, oh yeah, you'll open till 9 o'clock and then within 3 months you'll be staying open till midnight. That's not the case, and that's not the plan. And that's why I mentioned that even the selectmen could not enlarge that.
No.
Can you put restrictions on it? You can put all sorts of restrictions on it, and that's fine, and that's the way it should be, because this is going to be a community restaurant. It's going to be servicing the community, and I hope it represents the East Milton community.
Okay. Second question I have, and it's more of a question than a comment, and this is Suzanne. Obviously, you're an experienced restaurateur. How important is a liquor license to a higher-end sit-down restaurant for both lunch and dinner? Obviously, not many people of the mimosas, I guess, drink at breakfast, but how important is it to the success of a restaurant that is serving a higher-end?
Are you speaking more so about lunch or just?
Lunch and dinner, I guess.
Or brunch.
I mean, important from a financial point of view, I mean.
The success of a restaurant, I guess, yeah.
I think the way that I look at craft beer, small batch wine, is the same way that I look at producers who are, smoking their own bacon and smoking their own fish, all of which are products that we buy. With the expansion of the plate at the Milton Marketplace, I am the chef. And for me, the beer and the wine piece is, I don't know how to say it. Yeah, it's part of the whole experience there. The plate at Central Avenue is a takeout. We have seating for 10, bench seating. So to really go into something that's a more involved endeavor, that we're investing more money in, and obviously more time, I was excited by that. That's why we decided to go forward with this project. We were lucky in that the team that runs the Milton Marketplace came to us to offer us the space first. And that really came through, from what I understand, vendors that recommended us, customers that wanted a more expansive experience than what they're getting in 800 square feet. So in order to expand that experience, I guess, to get back to the original question, it's really about tapping into these smaller craft beers, wines, to really round out the experience that I want to give customers, and I feel like is missing from the community and the neighborhood.
Okay, my next question, and you may not have any knowledge of this, but I'll ask it anyways, and maybe Bob will. Currently, the Fruit Center has run limited dinners at, some of them are wine tasting dinners.
Right.
Some of them are cooking class kind of dinners. But all of those have had one-day liquor licenses served it. Any idea what the experience has been there in terms of, has there ever been any problems there? Has there been any problems with traffic? How many people do they get at those? Obviously, right now it's a bigger restaurant than what you're contemplating seating-wise.
Correct. We are actually, we'll have less seating than the
Right.
restaurant.
So I'm just curious what the experience, even though it's on a limited basis, what the experience may have been with those.
My understanding is they were fairly successful. There has never been a problem associated with it as far as any neighborhood complaints or any issues of somebody being later involved in an accident or anything along that line. They have been part of the offering. Part of the difference is the Magnosa family runs the Milton Marketplace, and the Magnosa family itself ran the restaurant. And now it's a little bit more separation. So they will be working together, but not as husband and wife as it has been in the past.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that is, you know, I heard that people really enjoyed that opportunity. I think that people want to stay within their community. When I was looking for space for the original plate, I worked with brokers every now and then. And when I would describe the concept of the restaurant, they tried to put us in Jamaica Plain, in Roslindale, and all of that would have worked, but I really feel like there's a big part of our community that doesn't want to necessarily drive to those neighborhoods to experience the kind of concept that we have in, you know, on paper and have laid out for this new space. So, I mean, the success of those wine dinners, I think, just speaks to that. That people, it's, you know, again, it's not, and I love to let loose and have cocktails every now and then. I work really hard, but, you know, the wine dinner experience is not about, you know, slugging back glasses of wine and, you know.
But tasting wine and food.
Yeah, it's about tasting wine and food, exactly. So that's the importance of their liquor license in this space and concept.
I would like to add that when I first represented Abbey Park, Stella's Restaurant was the high-class restaurant in the area. We've come a long way insofar as you know, after Abbey Park, we had the Wharf, we have Steel and Rye. Milton has become a destination community for people that enjoy food. And I think that's thrilling and exciting. And I think this is another step in that same direction. And it will entice more people to visit and appreciate the fine things Milton has to offer.
Suzanne, have you had neighborhood meetings? Have you had them?
This is just the beginning, like Bob said, where as of today, we don't even have a building permit for that space. So the date for opening is really up in the air right now. We're saying mid-June, but as everybody knows who's gone through construction, it could be longer. So this is the start of sharing our vision, our idea, and, you know, I'm going to work with Bob to do all kinds of neighborhood discussions. I mean, I'm a completely transparent person. We're not trying to slip anything by anybody in terms of what our plans are for this space. So I am open to it. I know that I'm doing a half-hour interview on public access with My Town Matters. We have told the Milton Times that as soon as we had a building permit and a better sense of opening date, we would speak with them. I went to the first meeting of the East Milton Neighborhood Association, not because I'm opening a business in there, but because I am a neighbor. So I plan and assume that there'll be lots of discussion through that organization as well.
Before the May town meeting?
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. There's one thing, my son is a writer, and he says that you don't do the book tour until the book is in the bookstand. This is a situation where we want to get the word out completely before the Maytown meeting so that the people that are making a judgment and casting a vote will know all about it. We hope to have neighborhood meetings, and we hope that East Milton particularly goes unanimously for it.
In particular, the abutters.
In particular, the neighbors and the butters. I mean, the Magnoso family has been very, very sensitive about the neighbors, and every time I get down there in the morning, I see that sign, "You will not cross this line to deliver anything before 8 o'clock." And they, that was in the rule book, but boy, that's enforced. And it should be enforced because they're in a residential neighborhood. Actually, we want the crescendo to be when it opens, but we want everybody to be knowledgeable about what is coming up in the town meeting and what is being requested, what the impact is, and why it's being requested.
Yeah, I'm a developer in the Boston area, and I can't build a doghouse without 20 meetings.
That's right.
With the neighbors.
That's right.
So this is a liquor license going into a residential neighborhood, so
Yes.
it's important that you have multiple meetings.
It is interesting. I mean, it clearly is a residential neighborhood, but if you look at the history of back before any of us were even thought of, that has been a commercial. I mean, it was the car barn for the trolleys at one point in time that used to run through East Milton Square. So it's always been a commercial
No, I get it.
building in a residential area.
But remember,
But now with
the
liquor
underlying
licenses. No liquor
zoning,
licenses,
the
no.
underlying zoning for Milton is residential.
Correct.
When I represented Granite Links, the only thing you could build on a dump is a single-family residence, okay? And that's because everything was single-family residence. They made an exception because you can't build a single-family residence on a landfill. But this is zoned single-family residence, but it's been in commercial use for probably at least 150 years.
Right. Right.
Bob and Suzanne, I had the same comment Dennis did, and we've let you know that we've received some emails from
By all
residents in the area
Yep.
on some of the side streets who have some concerns. I think what they have really is questions at this point. So it sounds like you're starting now to do some of the outreach that is really needed for you've probably already started, but you're doing some of the outreach that's going to be needed here. And could you, I don't know whether, Bob, you can speak to this or whether this is the Magnosa's attorney, but I understand there were questions last night about the expansion of the parking lot. Now, that's not going to be before this board. That's going to be before the Board of Appeals. And
Right.
that has been filed, but there's been no hearing yet, is that?
Okay, my understanding on this, and I may be wrong, is that somebody came to the Milton Marketplace and said, we have a budding property and you have the right of first refusal or something. What they are planning to do is to buy some property that is adjacent to the parking lot now. I'm not sure exactly where it is. Use it for employee parking only, which is the least problematic use of any parking because people are there for the longer duration, and free up more spaces in the parking lot, because you want people to be able to park right in front of where they're going. If they're going to CVS drugstore, you'd like to be able to have them park right before the drugstore. This having employees park in a different spot will add to the number of spaces and make it more convenient for people to come to the Milton Marketplace. That's all I know.
Okay.
I might just add that that has nothing to do with the plate, and I think that there's some confusion there. It just happens to be that this landowner, from the little bit I know, approached the marketplace at the same time we have committed to go into that restaurant. But, I mean, there's 182, I think, parking spaces in their existing lot. We're looking to seat 42 to 45 people. I mean, there's no reason that we need the marketplace to expand that parking. So I just wanted to, be on the record and sort of say that.
That's a different issue than this home rule petition
It's
for the liquor
totally
license.
unrelated.
Another different issue is one that came up last night, which is the hours. And you touched on this, Bob, but what the Board of Appeals did back in November, and this was a noticed hearing that the Board of Appeals had before them, and they had, I guess, one residents who spoke in support and no residents who opposed it. We have a copy of the decision. And they increased the morning hours from 8, they pushed it back from 8 o'clock until 6:30 in the morning
That's correct.
for the restaurant use for the morning commute. But even though the prior restaurant closed, I think around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the permit that was issued in 1991 by the Board of Appeals allowed the restaurant to be open until 9 o'clock at night. So the authority to open the restaurant was there. It's just that the prior restaurant did not have a dinner service, other than these one-time event, like the one-day liquor licenses that we've issued for different dinners and different events there at the restaurant. So that just needs to be clarified, because we have gotten some comments from people about those two issues, and those are not before this board. That's the Board of Appeals that's hearing both anything to do with the hours or the parking. That's all under the variance that the Board of Appeals issued. So we should just clarify that. I should note, too, before we get to your next comment, Tom, we also have gotten comments in support of the plate and the proposed home rule petition. We've gotten comments on both sides. So the fact that you're going to be doing a lot of this media attention and talking with some of the residents in the area is a good thing.
Since you're talking about hours, the 9 o'clock closing, is that a hard close? In other words, the doors lock at 9 o'clock?
Yes.
Everybody has to be out?
That's a hard close.
Okay.
That's a hard close.
Okay.
In other words, we're not going to begin to close at 9 o'clock.
You are closed?
We are closed. People
are out, doors are locked?
Right.
Okay.
The CVS has 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there will be still cars in the parking lot.
So for
but
dinner
not-
service, if you say, first, if you were going to do a sit-down dinner service, most you could probably do is 2 table turns.
Oh, at most, at most.
And our vision is really, on trend with sort of shared small plates, that kind of dining. So it's not it's not a restaurant like a Abbey Park where you're going to go sit,
Closed.
linger over courses. Again, we're offering something that's different than what's in the neighborhood already.
I want to add one other thing about the timing of this process, and Bob, you mentioned this at the beginning, but there have been some questions that I've gotten, and I'm sure both of you have gotten as well, about how, as I said at the beginning, some people thought we were going to be issuing a liquor license tonight. And clearly, that's not I think we've addressed that. Mr. Chan's and the new theater restaurant that's still, hasn't even